Eventually, if Gordon Brown has his way, we'll all be pottering around in cars yay big. Noddy cars, your mum's shopping trolley. Call them what you will, but these economic and affordable mini cars could well be the future for the hard-taxed motorist. But would you like to be seen in one? Let's put 3 of the leading contenders to the street cred tests. With the Chancellor continuing to pile taxes on the price of petrol whilst reducing taxes on the running costs of these small cars, they start to make a great deal of sense. But once you've shelled out your £7,000 or £8,000, what will they be worth a few years down the line? After 3 years and 36,000 miles, we think that the Seat Arosa will be worth around 55% of its original costs. It's a high build quality, VW parts, and since you can run it on short change, you'll be getting quite a large lump of your money back at the end of it. Not quite the same for the Fiat Seicento. We think about 40 to 45% after 3 years. The build quality is not quite as good, and these orange parts and the grey might start to look a bit tatty after 3 years. Now, traditionally, the Deus don't do well in the second-hand car market. Some people don't feel comfortable that there's no distributor backup. But because we think these cars are going to become increasingly popular in the future, there's going to be a strong niche market, and we do think they'll sell well. And this one, again, about 40 to 45% of your original costs. Next, it's the Tardis Test. These cars are designed to feel bigger on the inside than they look from the outside. But do they? And even if there's plenty of space in the front, what are the implications for legroom and storage space in the back? The Seat Arosa passes the Tardis test well. There's loads of headroom space up here, and the feeling of space is really helped by the acres of glass. Huge windscreen here, and look at the size of the door windows too, which really gives it a nice, airy, bright feel to it. Now, the driving position's comfortable, but I'm what, 5'10", and already the seat is all the way back. So, what must it be like sitting back there? It's not very comfortable, actually. There's nowhere to put my knees. Well, as you'd expect on cars this size, there's hardly any boot space whatsoever. Barely enough to put a couple of heavy shopping bags. But they are all flexible, and the Arosa is no exception, because the back seats flip forward so that you can actually extend the back space if you need to. The Seat Arosa has just about as much interior space as the VW Polo, and this configuration is probably the most practical way of using it. The Seicento also has reasonable head clearance for someone of average stature like myself, and the feeling of light and space here is helped by a small sunroof up here, but it's a bit fussy, and I don't particularly like the way that you open and close it with this twist wheel, which is all a bit fiddly. There are plenty of places to put things, but I think the design is lazy and rather ugly. Look at this great big grey bucket affair. You can throw lots in, but it's all going to slide around. And if we thought that the legroom in the back of the Arosa was small, just take a look at this. What's he talking about? There's loads of space back here, until you pull the seat down. If you're offered a ride in the back of one of these, remember that the bus can sometimes be a better alternative. Good grief. Boot space, small, about the same size as the Arosa, but again the back seat has this split fold arrangement, so with one half down, well, you can get a tiny passenger in the back and your week shopping, and if you put both sides down, well, it's not a bad little space actually. The Matiz is slightly narrower than the other two, and yet it still has the feel of a much bigger car, and that I think is due to the design of the front. The sloping windscreen means that you can't actually see the front of the bonnet, and there's this huge console area up here with loads of space, which reminds me of an MPV. And looking at the back, well, the seats look larger and more substantial than the others, and there does seem to be a bit more leg room. And look at this, tiny cars can still have 4 doors. The Daewoo Matiz is the winner of our Tardis test because the back seat feels like a proper one, and although there's not a great deal of legroom, it's better than the others. Now all 3 claim to be 5-seaters. Look, There are 3 seat belts in the back here, and we think that's rather optimistic. There's no way you get 3 adults in the back of any of them comfortably. In the back, split fold rear seats, of course, and the boot space, well, if anything, it's marginally bigger than the others. You just might be able to squeeze that extra carrot into your shopping. Apart from fuel economy, another great benefit of small cars is that you can park them easily. You can squeeze them into spaces that those big cars just have to pass by. So let's put that to the test. This is the Seicento. Reasonable visibility through the mirrors here so that you can see what's actually happening behind you. And this one doesn't have power steering, so that makes it just a little bit heavier to handle. But let me see how I do here, putting it between the other two. And good turning circles on all 3 cars too, and that helps. Easy, no problem at all. The Daewoo Matiz is the one that really feels like you're driving a much bigger car because there's so much space in here compared with the Fiat. But the fact that it feels like a big car is quite disconcerting because it certainly doesn't drive like a big car. It's only got 800 cc's. It's much more sluggish than the Fiat, so don't think you're going to beat many people off the lights. Very conservative styling here at the front, and I'm also a bit dubious about the gear shifts. I think when you're changing up and down, sometimes you're not sure whether you're in 3rd gear or 1st, so that's a bit sticky, I think. Oh, and one last thing about the hopelessly underpowered engine. It sounds horrible. What do you think? Listen to this. Engine or bicycle dynamo? Of the 3, the sporty little Fiat Seicento, is the one that most reminds me of driving inside a go-kart, right down to this small leather-clad steering wheel, which is quite good fun, and the fact that it doesn't have power steering. It has a really good turning circle, this car, but you have to work quite hard with it. Here in the city, it's extremely nippy. Despite the fact that it's only got an 1100 engine, you really can streak away from the lights with the quickest of them. Now, I know earlier I was critical of the buckets, these storage areas, which are rather grey and boring, but on the other hand, look at the styling of all these funky little knobs and dials. Look at that RPM gauge, it's absolutely gorgeous popping up there. Its Achilles heel, I think, is road noise. Even at this speed, 30 miles an hour, you can quite clearly hear the noise of the tyres on the road. And of course, as you get faster onto the open roads, then that noise gets really very loud indeed, and you have to crank up the radio in order to concentrate on it. The Seat Arosa has an unusual piece of styling which I quite like. You know how picky we all are about the colour of our car, and then we spend most of our time sitting inside it not noticing what colour it is at all? Well, as you can see, Seat have actually brought a lot of the exterior colour inside. It's unusual, and I think it works really well. Now, this car has the largest engine of the bunch at 1.4, but interestingly, it also has marginally better MPG figures. So in terms of power and efficiency, I'd say this is the car to go for. And also because that engine is slightly bigger, it performs best of the 3 out on the motorway. I drove this up from London last night, and 200 miles I suppose, and although the road noise gets quite high, it was quite a comfortable journey. However, at the end, of course, I got out and just had to shout at everybody because I couldn't hear a thing. Hello, nice to see you. Sorry I'm a bit deaf. Road noise on the motorway. That sort of thing. The Seat Arosa 1.4 has an overall cost per mile of just 26.9 pence. This comes with power steering and steering adjustment. It has an alarm and an immobiliser. The airbag's an option. Of course, it has a radio cassette and the split-fold rear seat. The Fiat Seicento Sporting 1100 has an even better cost per mile at just 22 pence. Again, you'll get an alarm immobiliser as standard, alloy wheels, central locking, electric windows. Of course, again there's a radio cassette, and this too has the split-fold rear seat. And the Daewoo Matiz SE Plus with its 800cc engine. Here the cost per mile is 23.3 pence. Again, with this one you get alloy wheels, power steering, central locking. Once again, there's an alarm immobiliser, standard on most cars these days. There's driver's and passenger airbag in the Matiz, electric windows too, radio cassette, and once again, for those space options, it has a split-fold rear seat. These cars are nippy, well-styled, fun, and at a third of the cost of an A-Class, they've got to be well worth looking at. The Seat Arosa, it's comfortable and quick. The Fiat Seicento has fantastic manoeuvring abilities. And the Daewoo Matiz with its dual airbags and air conditioning is our winner today. If you're looking to beat those motoring taxes, think small.
Years ago, the motor industry predicted we'd all be driving electric cars in an attempt to cut the effects of global warming. Battery technology, however, put limits on electric cars, making them heavy, expensive and impractical, as the cars could only complete a relatively small range compared with their petrol counterparts. Electric cars have so far not made it past development stage. Environmental issues have refused to go away, and world governments and environmental groups see the car as public enemy, their argument being get rid of cars and lessen pollution. This, Toyota's Prius, is the world's first mass production hybrid vehicle. It's already on sale in Japan and it comes to the UK next year, and it could save us from the bus queue as it takes steps towards cleaner, greener motoring times. The term hybrid means that the car runs on both petrol and electric power. The Prius makes use of its electric motor at slower speeds, but take to the open road and it changes to a petrol engine, giving the car extra range and performance. When overtaking, the car makes use of both petrol and electric power to give that little extra power where necessary. Toyota claims figures of around 75 miles per gallon for the Prius. As a result, it only emits half the amount of carbon dioxide as your conventional petrol engine, this making it quite a health-conscious little motor.
Now, the Punto has been an absolutely massive success. Best-selling Fiat ever, over 3.7 million, a record 52,000 in the UK last year, so it really is right at the top of the tree. But Fiat have decided enough is enough, and this is the all-new Punto that they're resting their hopes on to smash the success of the current model. Let's see how good it is. Fiat's big aim, they said, with the new Punto was to improve on the weaknesses of the old car, which they thought were too much noise inside the car from the engine, and also a better interior, better finish to it, and they also wanted to make it even bigger. The old car was the biggest in the class, but this one has got even more room. First thing you notice is just how refined this car is. Considering it's a 1.2 litre 8-valve engine, which is not exactly major league, it is remarkably refined. It really is a quiet little car. Once you get going, the biggest noise you get is when you get up to speed on a motorway with wind noise. The engine is very, very quiet. Another big area Fiat wanted to improve the Punto was its handling and ride comfort. It was pretty competent before, but it wasn't right up there, and they've done an awful lot of work on the suspension and the chassis, and it shows. This is a considerably much improved car for handling. The ride comfort is very good. You feel actually as if you're in a class above driving this car. The improvements continue with the gearbox as well. This one is very smooth, very slick. The old one was a little bit notchy, but this fits in with the rest of the car. It's very precise, and it's a pleasure to drive whether you're in town or on demanding roads. As a place to live in, the Punto excels. You really do not feel that you're sitting in a Super Mini. This has got good space for 4. Fiat argue you can take 5 into it. Well, you can, but at a push. But for 4, it is very, very comfortable. The seats are nicely contoured. The other great thing is it's got acres of little stowage space. A lot of thought has gone into this. There's no fewer than 23 different spaces to lose anything the modern family can think of losing. Coin holders, paper holders. This is a car that caters for a real family and for everyday use. Despite having the name of fire engine for the actual make of the engine, the 1.2 litre 8-valve is adequate. It's actually quite nippy, but it won't actually set any fires alight. If you do a lot of motorway stuff, you'd be better off getting the 16-valve 1.2 litre, which has that little extra and feels that little bit more comfortable cruising. That said, the 1.2 is more than adequate around town. Love the interior fabrics. Classic Italian. Real style about them. Doesn't feel like a Super Mini. You feel as if you're getting upmarket materials, and they match the colours and the trim really well. It's got a little chic touch of style about it. Good economy, of course, is crucial for a Super Mini, and this 1.2 will return nearly 50 miles to the gallon, and the 1.9 diesel does an incredible 60 miles to the gallon. Fiat have created 2 distinctive styles. There's a 3-door, which is more dynamic, and a 5-door, which is slightly longer and more elegant. Fiat have long been accepted as masters of gauging just what the public wanted with Super Minis. They've got a proven track record with small cars. And I think they've come up with another winner with the Punto.
Now, although many of us have secret dreams of cruising in a convertible or owning a sleek supercar, the reality is very different. Because there, in big, bold letters at the top of our shopping list, are the words cheap, economical, practical. Dull words, but very important ones. And 3 words that Toyota had very much in mind when they designed their latest Super Mini, the Yaris. Now, the Yaris is one of those cars that really does live up to its name. Yaris isn't the most conventional of names, and you'd be right in thinking that this isn't the most conservative of cars. It is in fact something of an oddity. It towers above most of its counterparts at a rather statuesque 59 inches. It might not be as long as its rivals, but it will still fit 4 adults comfortably inside. And now get ready for the biggest shock of all. This is a Japanese car, but it does appear to have been styled. No, it may not exactly look high fashion, but I think it's cute. It comes in a great range of colours and it looks great on the road. And let's face it, it's certainly an enormous improvement on anything we've seen recently from Japan. And inside, yes, you get another very pleasant surprise. There's been styling going on in here as well. Gone is a traditional dashboard, replaced instead by a centre pod that houses a digital information display. Now, generally the whole interior does feel extremely solid and well built. But darlings, please, can somebody ban the use of grey plastic from the interiors of cars? I hate it. Apart from that though, I haven't got any more complaints. There are plenty of cubby holes and storage spaces everywhere. Just perfect for things like maps. wheel visibility is excellent. You get a great view of everything that's going on around you. And although this is a very small car, you feel really airy and open. You could very well be in something much bigger. Now at the moment the Yaris comes with just one engine. It's a 1 litre. It's got 67 brake horsepower and has a top speed of 96 miles per hour. Now it's not the most powerful of engines, but particularly in the low gears, there is enough there for you. It's when you get up into 5th gear and you're hitting 70 that it does start to get very noisy. But let's be honest here, this isn't the kind of car that's going to really see a lot of action at the top end of the range now, is it? The gearbox on the Yaris is superb. It feels very sharp and the clutch is nice and smooth. And all this goes together to make the Yaris a really good car to drive around town in. This is where this car comes into its own. The steering is nice, it's got a good turning circle. There's power steering on everything but the most basic model. And because of the nice short body, it also makes it very easy to park. It really is a perfect city car. Well, prices start at £7,495 on the road for the 3-door S model, and that rises to £10,995 for the 5-door CDX, which comes with things like alloy wheels, air conditioning and a CD radio as standard. Okay, so what about economy? Well, the Yaris is actually a good all-round buy. All this 1 litre engine needs is a 10,000 mile health check. It only needs a full service every 20,000 miles or 2 years. And because of Toyota's price fixing policy, it means that should you need any parts, they're likely to be quite a bit cheaper than those of the competition. And did I mention, you should be getting up to 50 miles per gallon out of the Yaris. Not bad, eh? Hey, you can't complain about 4 doors, plenty of space, 3 years warranty and 3 years free roadside rescue in case the unthinkable happens. And because this is a Toyota, there's really not much chance of that. Now, I suppose some of us really are filthy rich and do spend our days sipping champagne whilst gazing at the exotic supercars parked on the driveway. But if for you the reality is 2 kids to get to school, shopping to be done at the supermarket, followed by a not so glamorous cup of tea, then the Toyota Yaris is the perfect car to have parked on your driveway.